Okay, thank you for joining me. I'm here again for another healing story. And with me today is a chap called Pauly Nuttall. He is also part of the SOMA breath community, a fellow instructor like myself. He has a healing story to tell. And again, much like the others, I don't know anything about this story. So it'll be interesting. I'll be just as interested as you to hear this story. So, Pauly, I wonder if I could hand it over to you. If you could just introduce yourself, we'll just let it flow. Over to you.
Thanks, Dave. Do you want the short version or the long version?
Up to you. If it's too long, I can edit it.
Yeah. Well, I'll start from really where things started for me. Well, for a long time, I felt lost. I was traveling around the world, and I'd go from country to country, and I'd be in one place for 3 months. I'd be unhappy and be like, okay, I don't want to be here. I'm going to go somewhere else. And it all kind of came to a standstill for me. And I had to look and go, okay, well, what's going on? Why am I looking for this happiness? Why am I not finding this happiness everywhere I go? And I started going into some personal development work, and then it really took me back to the start of my journey of when I was around 8 years old. And this was through Reiki healing, having energy healing, having sound healing, doing ayahuasca experience, landmark forum, different personal development things that all kind of directed me back to this one moment that was at the end of a 6-year period. I was bullied for about 6 years in primary school for being overweight. And I remember this one time, this one experience that kept coming up with these different healing things. And it was all around this time when this boy, we were in the swimming pool, we just had been swimming. I remember standing there, and this boy spat on me and punched me. And he liked to call me a fat bastard. That was his terminology. And it went on for years. But that one time, I remember I just stood there and I just looked him dead in the eye. And I just put a wall up. I put this barrier up that stopped me allowing anybody in, but also stopped me allowing myself to love and connect with other people.
Wow.
So then, yeah, going to me traveling around the world, I was looking for this external happiness, but really it was only when I started looking within and finding that inner child, that small boy was just kind of stuck, and he was just trying to protect me.
That's amazing. I'll ask you some more, because I know obviously there's much more to this story. What's interesting about that, obviously I have a son, he's 6 years old. And when you become a parent, you are reminded of your time as a child. I think most people go through bullying at some point in their childhood. But to go through a 6-year period of bullying, it's no wonder some kind of template is created up here. And obviously the catalyst to that was that time with, the swimming pool. And I think when you're a parent, you also then realize how those formative years are so important. And what happens, especially up to the year 0 to 7, and that's when your brain is in that sponge-like state. And then beyond that, what can happen in those times, those negative experiences, really do stay with you for life, and can, by the sounds of it, lay dormant and then manifest in strange ways later on, can't they? So that's, this is a story that will be familiar to many. So continue, yeah. So you now know what the catalyst was, and by the way, is this something that you knew for some time, or was this something because of one of the practices that you went through, i.e. Perhaps the ayahuasca or something else? Was it that told you, that reminded you of that incident?
It came up a number of times. Energy healing, when I had a healing session, kind of came up there in a vision. It came up when I did Landmark Forum. Have you heard of Landmark Forum?
Yeah.
Yeah, so during the 2 days, it came up there, and there was obviously, there's no breath work, there's nothing in there. There was a time when we had to spend time just to kind of go within and see what came up. And I saw it then, because we had to write a letter. But obviously I hadn't processed it, even though I'd been through it over and over again. It was the ayahuasca that really was the icing on the cake for me, because not only did I see it, I had to experience it, and I had to go through it again and again. And I also, during that experience, saw my ego. Like I'm looking at you now, I saw my ego face to face. And I could see it was my ego that was really holding on to this kind of pain body, holding on to this experience, making it part of itself. And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about it, because it's still within me, and I can still feel that it does want to hold on to it as part of its identity. It just doesn't want to. It's like an excuse for certain things I do, that the ego part is really just using it as a crutch. It loves to feed. When I go back into that state, that pain body just loves to feed off of that. So it's really turning it in. I needed to process it and turn it into a power of mine, and not as a negative. And that was the hardest bit, was reconnecting back to that inner child, and taking that inner child by the hand and be like, no, you're now with me. I changed the name. I used to call it Fat Paul. I used to name it Fat Paul, and it was a breathwork session I did, and I went within and I connected with it, and I saw him, and it was just this child that was just sitting down, kind of in feel like a fetal position. And I connected with him, and then I said to him, what is the matter? And he said to me, I don't like being called Fat Paul. And I was like, okay. And then we reconnected, and I clearly saw my young self at that time. And I took him by the hand, and I said, okay, we're in this together. You're part of who I am, and you are my superpower. You are the source of me going on this journey to help other people to heal. So let's work together to create that. And brought up a lot of tears going through that, for sure.
That's amazing, isn't it? Because, as you say, if you've been feeding it for so long, it's no wonder it stays in there and grows and gets stronger and stronger. And the harder it is, therefore, to change it, to not remove it, because, as you say, you're turning it. You're not saying, I want to get rid of it, because then that pours more of that negative force onto it, doesn't it? Whereas if you're turning it into, as you call it, a superpower, knowing that is the catalyst for real change, that is the catalyst to you doing what you're now doing, to stopping the search for this happiness, to figuring out that what you really want to do is to help others, then it does become your superpower. That's amazing. That's really interesting. And you spoke about the pain body, so I'm assuming you're into your Eckhart Tolle and things like that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And what you've experienced when you say doing the inner work is certainly far beyond where I've ever gotten to. And do you think, in order to have gotten that deep, to have experienced the depth of your inner world, as it were, do you think it was the ayahuasca that was the key to that, or could it have been any other modality?
I was definitely called to ayahuasca.
And by that you mean what?
For a long time, I felt I needed to, it was coming up a lot in my life. different things I was listening to, and I just really felt it resonated with me. I felt I had to do it. There was something I had to do. And my wife now, before we were married, shortly after we got together, actually, she said, oh, she's going to go traveling in Peru. And I said, oh, I'd love to go to Peru to take ayahuasca, you know, to go within and find what traumas are slowing me down and holding me back. And she said, well, come. And we went, and we were going through a bit of a tricky period when we were on that trip. We'd only been together 4 or 5 months, and we were traveling around South America, Bolivia, Peru, and it was hard, and it just came up. It was the perfect timing. She was doing 3 days in Uyuni, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to La Paz. There's a 3-day ceremony. And when I arrived as well, it was just me there for the day leading up to the ceremony. And I just got to connect with the shaman and really open up. And during the ceremony, the interesting thing was he gave me this jaguar tooth. He put this jaguar tooth on me, and I had no idea what it was for. But later on, I found out that he gave me that because he knew I was going to struggle so much, because my body was so resistant to letting go. The ego was so resistant to letting go.
Wow. So was that a kind of a giving you a power, as it were?
It was kind of, protection and support. And after the ceremony, though, everybody went to bed, and I couldn't sleep. I kept falling asleep. I'd wake up and I'd be shaking. I'd be in tears for about 3 hours, and the other people in the room were fast asleep. I had to go and wake the shaman up. I was in tears, and he had to keep doing some more energetic work on me to really bring me back down out of this state.
Wow.
This process. And I know I've still got more to deal with. That's the interesting thing, because ayahuasca showed me this trapdoor in the floor, and it said, oh, are you ready to see what's in here yet? And I was in full-blown tears, and I was like, no, not yet. I am not ready. So it's
wow.
There's more in there to process.
Which now I guess is I would imagine that's a slightly different perspective. Having gone there already, knowing that there's more, I guess, are you coming now from a process or from a perspective of intrigue rather than fear? As in, I've gone through this, I know what to expect. That trapdoor will elicit some things that I don't want to admit to or accept, but I'm now more intrigued. Is that where you're coming from, or is it still somewhat tricky to know you've got to deal with it?
Knowing it's there, yeah, definitely there is an intrigue, and I am ready to go. I want to actually go and do a month there. I still communicate with the shaman from there, and we're in a lot of communication. And I want to go and do a whole month in the jungle. Where it'd be a week in the mountains, 2 weeks in the jungle, and another week in the mountains, with a combination of ayahuasca and San Pedro, because I want to go in. I do want to go deeper and do the work. But that's what breathwork is amazing. It does allow to kind of access some of these similar kind of modalities. I feel there's similar experiences. I've had some ayahuasca-like experiences just through breath. So I wouldn't say to people, you have to go and do ayahuasca. There are so many different modalities, and breathwork is one of those super powerful ones to help us go deeper.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the beautiful thing about ayahuasca is it really does help strip away those things that are getting in your way from you really doing the work.
Yeah. And I would imagine, I've not done ayahuasca, but I would imagine once you've gone there and had those layers stripped away by ayahuasca, but then doing breath work, as you say, breathwork is an incredible experience. From a physiological perspective, it's amazing at eliciting neurochemicals very quickly to change your state. you can go deeper with breath work, as you say, but I wonder if you've also experienced an ayahuasca trip. I wonder whether it's easier to go deeper with breath work after doing ayahuasca. In other words, having had those doors opened or the layers removed. This is more of a question than me knowing.
Yeah. No, and yeah, I would be inclined to say possibly, because I think you have access to different parts of your brain, different parts of your shadow that you have buried, that are allowing you to connect to it again, to keep processing it. But if you've never accessed it, I think it could be harder. Yeah, possibly. But that would be really interesting to kind of to dive deeper into, to be able to look at that.
Yeah. Another question for you, actually. Had you experimented with any psychedelics prior to doing ayahuasca?
When I was in Australia, I tried. I'm more interested in what the buzz around these different things were. So I did try a number of different illicit drugs, and LSD was one of them. And LSD, I think, probably did get me on this experience. This allow me to go deeper into this spiritual experience. It just showed me different way of looking at things. I was at a festival and colors were just beyond what I see with my normal eye. It just opened my eyes, and greens, oranges, it was all just so much more vibrant. Everything was just so much more beautiful. It was like looking through at the world through a different set of eyes. And I didn't have any visions of any kind of weird things or anything like that. It was just beauty is what I had. And everybody has a different experience. And again, I think you see what you need to see in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, LSD was there for me.
It's also the context, I suppose, isn't it? If you're going into using LSD with the context or the expectation of wanting to go deep inside, you might well have one experience. If you're taking LSD, you're with a group of friends and you're doing it purely from an enjoyable perspective of just wanting to have fun, then you'll have this other experience. I think part of it is the expectation beforehand, isn't it? The beauty that I would imagine, the wonderful thing about the ayahuasca trip is the preparation beforehand, which is all designed in a specific way in order to prepare you for this experience and allow you to go inner. And having that and having that shaman there, that, let's say, expert in inverted commas, to guide you will again help and aid you in this journey. So where are you now then? I know physically where you are. So for those watching, Pauly at the moment is in Japan. He will soon be moving to Europe. But where are you now on your journey in terms of bringing what you've learned to help others? Where are you there? What's the next step?
So I studied Primal health coach course. Then I did my SOMA breath course. I finished my Reiki master course. And I was creating an online business around me helping people, on a private coaching level, providing online breath work experiences. And actually, last week, I kind of hit a wall. I hit a wall, and a wall of doubt, a wall of, what am I doing? What it is that I truly want to do. And it really made me step back, actually, and rethink about what I want to do. and communication is a huge thing, and community is a huge thing. So actually, we had a little chat a little bit about community just before we started this, and I've actually started thinking, I was drawn towards trying to get away from Facebook, away from social media. I was like, okay, what other platforms exist around support, around community, around growth, personal development?
Yeah.
And it was so hard.
It's tricky, isn't it?
So many distractions. So I actually kind of found a program that I'm now I'm actually creating my own almost social media platform off of Facebook. And the whole goal of that is to create a community around personal development, a place that people can come together to support, because that is where I struggled the most. I didn't have people who understood what I was going through. I didn't have people I could go to who had the experience as well for assistance. And right now we are surrounded by, there's coaches in everything from, you name it, there's probably a coach in that field. But still, I feel that there's still so much disconnection. So my goal is to create that platform that encompasses all of these different modalities for coaches to be able to be there to support people, but also people to come together and support each other.
Yeah.
And I'm naming that the Awakening Network is where I'm at now.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that's a brilliant idea. For those watching, Pauly and I were talking about community and the benefits of community, but the fact that the online world of community really isn't a true replication of what human communities should be like, of course, because it puts up barriers and is very ego driven, as you said, Pauly. It is nice to connect with others that have a similar mindset and interest, but that is only one level. In order to truly experience community and to help each other, you need to strip away a few of the barriers that prevent that true community from working. And you're probably not going to get that in every sense on the online world. This is the problem with the technology that we've created. Even more so than ever, we've gotten so far removed from what we're supposed to be doing, living as humans. And I wonder, with your move to Portugal, could this also lead to something more like a physical community?
Definitely. So the move to Portugal was very spur of the moment, and it started from a dream. I was struggling, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know what was going on, and one night I actually asked, I was like, okay, show me what I need to see. And I went on a journey, and I was moving to Portugal. So that opened the doors, and we started talking about it. We were like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. And a big thing that I saw in the vision was a community, their physical community. So yes, Portugal, I feel, is going to be a big community opportunity. A lot of different people who are similar minded. And it's going to be interesting to move from a small town, I think it's here, it's got 10,000 people, to a city. We're moving to Lisbon, so it's going to be an abundance of people in a way, with so many opportunities of finding like-minded people. Yeah. That's going to be a really good experience.
I keep hearing good things about that bit of Portugal. I've only ever been to the Algarve, and I didn't like it at all. But I know that the north bit of Portugal is meant to be an incredible, vibrant part of the country. And of course, we were talking about Boom Festival prior to hitting record. So Lisbon, I think, is about 2.5, 3 hours journey from the festival. And the great thing about Boom Festival is that they have created a community. They have this once every 2 years, they have this big music festival, as you know. And then in the interim, they live and work together in this community, from what I understand, and they work the land, and it is very eco-driven. It sounds incredible. Wouldn't it be great if you could create something similar? Excuse me, I have to explain. I have a cold. And the amusing thing about that, and I was having this conversation with my wife, is that I've genuinely believed, and I say this with a wry smile, that I've become superhuman through doing all the methods and practices that I do. And part of it is, and I say this because I do say it quite a lot, it's partly because on a serious side, I like and believe that the strength of belief also enables a better health system. If you believe yourself healthy, you will be. So I always tell myself this, but also I make a joke of it as well, because some of the stuff that I do, I know is perceived as a little bit odd by other people. So what I've learned, though, is that I'm not doing enough ice baths because over the last couple of days, I did succumb to a cold, which doesn't happen these days. So I need to do more work myself. More ice baths for me. So anyway, back to you, Pauly. So community is the next bit, creating this world of practitioners that can help and support each other. And these are practitioners from all different modalities and disciplines. And hopefully, I guess it's a place where you can learn from each other as well. You know, when we're thinking about that, the true community of having people brought together, everybody with a specialist skill, job sharing, or rather sharing your experience with others, sharing your work with others. I love the idea, and I did put this out in the tribe. It didn't work, and I'm going to keep plugging away at this in my little Facebook group, the Tribe of Evolutionaries. I love the idea of we've all got different skills and experiences that could help somebody else. And I think a real test of a community is to say, okay, these are the things that I'm good at, and these are the things that I need. Does anybody want to swap my skill with your skill? And that makes a lot of sense to me. That's how you bring people together, you know, by really helping each other without having this ulterior motive. So this would be something, I guess, your community could be very good at too.
Yeah, it's all around, trying to exchange energy for energy. And that's what I feel money essentially is looked at now, would be energy. So it's like you're doing something for me, I'm paying you in money.
Yeah.
But to make that money, there's been some sort of work to create that. But instead of going through that process of generating that money, it's like you say, swapping time for time or a service. And yeah, inside of that community, that's what I really want to do is open that up to have workshops from different practitioners, free workshops for people to attend to. I want to be able to give value to the community so they can join and learn something from a practitioner. But then I also want to give the opportunity for the practitioner to then create a course or a product that then the community could be interested in. But again, I want these to be affordable or on a name your price basis, not on a set amount, because everybody has a different value of money or time. And again, so hopefully these practitioners can be like, okay, well, if you're in this such and such a thing, well, maybe we can do a swap, or if you can't afford it, then let me know. We can adjust the prices. Hopefully people who are more affluent, who can afford to pay more, will be able to then support that person and kind of offset somebody else's pay, the amount that they can do.
Yeah.
And that's what I really trying to envision.
I think that's a great idea. I think what you've got to do, though, I guess, is to really build that connection beforehand, where people will inevitably, naturally make those decisions. Because what you've described there is very utopian. And I do think it is possible, but I guess you've almost got to create that real connection beforehand, haven't you, to make sure so that people have that that connection with others.
Trust.
That trust. Yeah. Sorry, as you know, so my head isn't quite. It's still swimming in this cold. So now another question for you: given what you've learned now, with the methods and practices that you employ, what you've learned about yourself, somebody that has gone through a traumatic period in your childhood for quite some time. 6 years is a long time to go through, being bullied. What advice or tips can you give to anybody that might well have experienced that in a former part of their life, in their childhood?
Communication. Being open to finding somebody else outside that has maybe experienced what you've experienced, and connecting with them and getting assistance, because they're the people I feel who can really understand and empathize. I was seeing a counselor when I was younger, and the thing is, the counselors, and they are all trained professionals in that, but sometimes I don't necessarily know if they can really empathize with what somebody is going through. They're taught to listen and ask the right questions, but to be able to speak to somebody who understands, who has been through that experience, I think goes on a much deeper level. And this is, again, the reason why I'm doing this is it's not just about my own journey. It's about what I've seen within my family, within my life. My sister was somebody who didn't speak about her problems, and she unfortunately went the wrong way and drank to process those.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was her way of dealing with those emotions. It was just to suppress it and not go through the whole forgiveness and dealing with it. And unfortunately that killed her, because she didn't know how to process it, to release it. And that's why I really another reason I'm really driven towards helping people to have that community, to have that support network, because again, she didn't have that. And I think if she had the access to these different modalities that I have used, they may well have helped her. And that's the one of the big underpinning driving factors as well for me to do this journey.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I know this is again a familiar story, isn't it? Because the easiest thing to deal with a problem is to find a quick solution through alcohol, drugs, etc. And quite often, I think it's because people genuinely assume that there is no other answer. They haven't explored these other ideas. And I think you're right when it comes to any negative experience, trauma that's occurred in your life. It really is only other people that have experienced it that will give you that doorway of acceptance for you and for them. Beyond creating this community and this program, is there anything else of note that you'd like to tell people that could be a way of them contacting you for help, or some other things that you have in the pipeline that you'd like to mention to anybody watching this?
Instagram is a good place to connect with me. Pauly Nuttall, and that's Paul with a Y on the end. And Nuttall's Nuttall. Everyone spells it with a H. There's no H. And on there, I actually do daily videos about how I'm feeling. And some days I'm feeling really good, and then other days I'm feeling shit. So I go through those different emotions, and the same as everybody else. I'm not a person who's always upbeat. It's I go through the emotions and I allow them to show.
So
that's really the main place.
So from an Instagram perspective, you're a rare commodity. You're showing your real life rather than the glossed over version.
Yeah, well, trying to, yeah. And that all started actually because I was in a mastermind group and somebody challenged me. They said, okay, well, my biggest fear was speaking out in public. I hated standing up and speaking out in public. Holding the camera was also another thing I hated doing. I was just scared. And this came, the fear. So even this is after doing the ayahuasca, after doing all of the other stuff, this fear came back to not being vulnerable, not allowing people to tell me what I am or what I am not. And it comes back to that original thing of that wall I put up. So even though this was way after the ayahuasca, that's what I was meaning, it still comes back, it still shows its face. And somebody challenged me to that video though, and then it was just like, oh, well, this feels great. This is really good for me to express my feelings, but also people are connecting and saying thank you, because they had those similar experiences but didn't know how to express it. And listening, it allowed them to kind of know that they weren't alone in this journey. So yeah, Instagram is my main place to hang out. Facebook, I'm very resistant towards at the moment. I just find it very dead in there. It doesn't seem to go anywhere. And this is exactly why I am moving away and building this network. And I'd like to talk to you after this as well about how we could collaborate and go further and assist each other more on this journey of building tribes that need that assistance, that want that assistance, that can grow together. And that's really where I'm going, is to connect with people like you who are looking for that alternative, to then as well not only be able to house their tribe in a safe place, but also to then be able to communicate with a much bigger tribe.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, let's do that. That's what I love about these chats, actually, just collaborating, communicating with other people on a similar path. Well, Pauly, in which case, let's end this now, but thank you. I really appreciate your time. Stay on the line. Obviously, we are going to chat further. But that was such an inspirational story that I know will resonate with lots of people out there. And I think it's important for people to know, they should know this already, but it's important for them to know that there is no quick fix to anything, especially when it comes to trauma. This is something that remains with you for life. However, how you deal with it, how you process it, is the key to it all. Many people will go down that route of the quick numbing effects of drugs and alcohol, and I can see why people will do that. It's justifiable in a sense, because it does give you the quick fix, but the real work only comes in time, by experiencing. And you don't, by the way, have to go, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Pauly, people don't have to go to Peru and do ayahuasca. You don't have to go down the ayahuasca route to figure this stuff out. Just being connected with somebody else that's gone through this in their life, that's part of it. Pauly, thank you. I really appreciate your time and energy. I'll apologize now to other people if my cold has made it slightly difficult to hear. I apologize. It won't be on the next one. But thank you again.
Thank you, Dave.
See you all very soon.